Hello and welcome to this short video where I'm going to be looking at the idea of holistic assessments using a decisional balance and the biopsychosocial model of risk. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take part in a thought experiment. I want you to imagine that I gave you a box and I told you that inside the box there was either £1 million or a canister of poison gas that would kill you instantly when you opened the box. And I told you that there was an even chance of it being each of those. My question is, would you open the box? What about if I told you that it contained not £1 million, but £1 billion, and also that I told you that there was only a 1 in a million chance that it contained the gas? Would you open it then? How about if I told you that instead of money, it contained the secret to the cure for all known illnesses, or the poison gas, and again, it was 50-50 which it would contain? Would that change your perception of whether this was a risk worth taking? I think this provides us with a useful tool for thinking about risk. When we think about risks, we need to consider potential losses and potential gains. Some risks can lead to a small gain and others to a big gain. Some can lead to small losses, whereas others can lead to big losses. In general, when the potential gains are greater than the potential losses, then the risk becomes worth taking. But that's not the whole story. Most risks involve an element of the unknown. Compare these two situations. Situation number one. I say to you, if you give me £5, I will give you a copy of David Howe's book, A Brief Introduction to Social Work Theory. Situation two. If you roll 2 dice and give me the amount of money represented by the sum of the number on the 2 dice, then I will randomly pick a book off my shelf and give it to you. Now that situation, those examples, the first situation is clearly not a risk. You lose £5 and you gain a specific book, but you know exactly what you're getting. In the second situation, you're likely to lose around £7, but it could be as low as 2 or as high as 12. And you might get a book that you really want that is worth a lot more than that amount of money, or you might get a book that's worth less that you really don't want. That is a risk. This means that when we're looking at assessing risk, we need to factor in not just how good or bad things are, but also how likely they are to happen. This is where we can use the idea of a decisional balance, something that is borrowed from an approach called motivational interviewing. With some risks, the gains and the losses may be certain. Sometimes they're probable, but not certain. Sometimes they're only possible, and occasionally those benefits and gains are very unlikely. We may well be willing to take a risk if there's a big gain that is very likely, even if there are many less likely potential costs to that risk. Sometimes we will accept known costs that are definite if we think that the gain is big enough and likely enough to make it worth it. We can also think about risks using something called the biopsychosocial model. This model is one of the most general models in social work. It simply says that when we're carrying out any assessment, we need to consider biological factors, psychological factors, and social factors. We can apply this to the decisional balance model by asking what are the psychological, biological, and social costs and benefits in any situation. Do this by simply asking, what is the best outcome here? What is the worst outcome? And then sorting the answers into those 3 categories. Let's apply this to social work by using the signs of safety model. Let's meet Becky. Becky is 18 years old. She was sexually exploited from the ages of around 13 to around 16. And during that time, and for about a year afterwards, she was estranged from her family. Despite that, she achieved 6 GCSEs and got good grades. She also moved into supported accommodation after disclosing the abuse when she was pregnant with her son Roscoe. Roscoe was removed from her care when she was found to be repeatedly drunk. Since then, she has re-established contact with her family and is now living with her parents and her siblings. And the question to be considered is, should Roscoe be returned to her care? Now, where would you start with an assessment like that? Where would your risk assessment begin? Well, I think a really useful question to start with is, who has the least power? So in this situation, I think we could say Roscoe has the least power. So we would put Roscoe at the heart of our assessment. However, don't forget to include everyone when you're doing an assessment. Becky may have more power than Roscoe, but both deserve the same level of care and respect from a social worker. So in this situation, pause the video here for a moment and think about, what are the danger signs here? What are the signs of safety? And in particular, think in terms of biological, psychological and social factors. A good social worker will carefully look at all those factors, the biological, the psychological and the social, when they're making their risk assessments. They will consider all the gains and the benefits of reuniting Becky with Roscoe, as well as the strengths and the signs of safety in Becky and in her wider social network. They will also look at the potential costs and the harms that might come from reunification, as well as the realistic danger signs that this case study would present you with. What is important to remember here is this is not a fixed model of assessment. This only allows a snapshot of the current position. In the next session, we'll consider how these factors can be managed to minimise risk and to make defensible decisions.